What's up, guys? In this video, we're going to go over the Bretton Woods system. So after World War II, it was clear the world needed a new financial system, and the gold standard was considered too rigid. But at the same time, economists were worried that countries would devalue their currency to boost exports. So for this reason, 44 countries sent delegates to a conference held in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, as of July 1st, 1944. And the US held 2/3 of the world's gold reserves after the war, and was obviously the most influential player, and ultimately all currencies got linked to the dollar, as the dollar was linked to gold. So all these other currencies across the world, they linked and pegged their currency against the dollar, which then the dollar was pegged and linked against gold. So how? The big question is, if a country goes through an economic crisis, how can they get out of it without devaluing their currency? So that's why two institutions were created, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which was supposed to lend money to countries who are in trouble and cannot attract finances from other sources, and the World Bank. They were supposed to help less developed countries grow and prosper. So the Bretton Woods system did not survive because the US kept running deficits to fund various projects. So they kept going in debt and spending more than they're actually receiving to fund these various projects. Therefore, the amount of dollars in existence, and we just learned about inflation,
orange marmalade,
kept increasing while the gold reserves of the US kept shrinking. So think about that on the scale. So you have the US dollar right here, you have the gold reserves right here. So as gold reserves are shrinking and US dollars are growing, that just means gold's like this. So you have that on this end, and then you have the US dollar that's just printed out of thin air based on nothing, and it keeps growing. So you have way more dollars now chasing way less of gold. There needs to be a balancing of the scales, and that's what ultimately ended up happening. So therefore, the amount of dollars in existence kept increasing while the gold reserves of the US kept shrinking. So as more countries demanded gold for their dollars. So when did this happen? It happened in August 15, 1971, when President Nixon announced the dollar would no longer be convertible into gold. That was the nail in the coffin right there as far as the US dollar and how the value of it would preserve. Once we got off the gold standard, the US dollars were just based on faith and confidence and trust in the government that backs it. So why is this important to know? Because we just learned about the current financial system, how it works, and how so bad a scam it is. And then number two, why does this matter to us? So we first learned about the current system and how it's the biggest scam in the history of mankind, and how the whole system actually works in the plumbing of it, right? And then we learned about inflation and the history of money. So now we're seeing here with the Bretton Woods system how we got off of it because of the same problem that's happening today. They keep increasing the amount of dollars in the system. So that is why we're doing what we're doing. We're investing because we see the signs of the past. 1971, they unlinked the dollar from gold. And why is that? Because they kept printing more money than they should have, and their gold kept shrinking, so they had to delink it. And that's what ultimately caused this kind of mess that we're in now. More money, more debt. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, and that's why it's important to us, because we know the game, we know what happened in the past, we can apply that to the future, and we're living in the same thing right now, basically. And we're also on the brink of a new Bretton Woods moment. So as you see here, they were talking about the IMF, and talking about how the IMF was created out of the Bretton Woods system and the World Bank. And the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, was supposed to lend money to countries who are in trouble and cannot attract finances from other sources. So the IMF has something called the SDRs, and those are special drawing rights. And we dive into that later on in your first mission of Agartha. But the IMF recently, now let's catch it up to speed, because that was back in like 1944. Now, sitting here in 2022, we can go to the new Bretton Woods moment. I'm going to pull it up on Google right now. So right here, with just a Google search, a new Bretton Woods moment I typed in, and you see the IMF.org. So you see the IMF.org. A new Bretton Woods moment, International Monetary Fund. So now, after watching the animated summary and this follow-up commentary, you know what the Bretton Woods moment was. We made the dollar the world reserve currency, linked it to gold, and all the other currencies then linked it to the dollar, plus the creation of the IMF and the World Bank and tons of other sort of things, I'm sure of it. But we know that's what happened then, and now you have the IMF, which was created out of the Bretton Woods, saying a new Bretton Woods moment. Something is going on under the surface, and it's not like it's going to happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen within the next, well, in our lifetimes, of course, but in the next few years. We have the timeline by 2025, by 2030. So a new Bretton Woods moment, they're prepping us with the narrative. And then you even see here, BrettonWoods.org, the official Bretton Woods website, seizing the new Bretton Woods moment, April 7, 2021. And then the first one was October 15, 2020. And that's when that article came out about how the US dollar, all the US dollars, a fifth of it was printed in 2020. So all the stars are aligning on this. And then you see November 26, 2020, yahoo.com. Is the world headed towards another Bretton Woods moment? I think so. So what does a new Bretton Woods moment mean? So seismic shifts are unfolding, which will significantly impact our economic future. And it's so true, it will. So this is why it's so important. But the International Monetary Fund recently announced their intention to fundamentally redesign the global financial structure. So the International Monetary Fund recently announced their intention to fundamentally redesign the global financial system. Huge. Specifically, they call for a new Bretton Woods moment. A statement like this carries major implications for all nations and investors that are wondering how this restructuring will take place and what it means for international markets. This is not no drop in the bucket.
This is huge. The Bretton Woods moment and system was a turning point in our history. And now you have the same institution and fund, monetary fund created out of it, saying that they're calling for a new Bretton Woods moment to fundamentally redesign the global financial structure. And of course, other countries, nations, and investors like us that know about it are sitting here wondering how will this restructuring take place and what it means for international markets. We don't know yet. We're trying to figure it out. It's a lot of hidden kind of clues and puzzles you got to stick together and find what statistically could happen or the probabilities, but we'll never 100% know. So it's very exciting. It's a little, you get a little anxious, but it's also like, hey, we're on top of it. We know what's going to happen, and we're going to make the best bets and best statistical probabilities to make sure that we're executing. So if we don't understand the past, write in this article. And that's why we're showing you the past. We're catching you up.
If you're new to crypto, or if you've been in crypto for a while and you still don't feel like you have a strategy, then we have the perfect thing for you, because it's one thing to have a strategy, but it's another thing to automate that strategy. So what we're doing right now is a waterfall flash sale. This is the start of week 1. We just launched our Stargate automated experience, which gives you access to utilize our custom automatic trading bots that we built for XRP, XLM, HBAR, Algorand, and a bunch of other altcoins. If you're sick and tired of watching the charts every single day, worrying, stressing, guessing about prices, and if it's going to go up or down, then look no further than this, because this is the holy grail for any crypto holder or trader.
If we don't understand the past, then we struggle to comprehend the present, and it's so true. In this article, we will look back to the first Bretton Woods moment and search for clues as to how the IMF's plans may impact the future value of gold. So the call for a new Bretton Woods moment was made by the International Monetary Fund Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, and has far-reaching implications. The vast majority of the world's population is too young to remember the foundation of the Bretton Woods system, but not us, we know. But it is important to note that this event also created the IMF itself. With the IMF calling for a new historical economic system, we are guaranteed that a seismic shift is about to take place. Towards the end of World War II, by 44 nations. The system got its name because of the 1944 meeting held in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, during the 3 weeks of the conference. So the system got its name, the Bretton Woods system, because of the 1944 meeting that was held in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. So during the 3 weeks of the conference, the attendees agreed upon the structure of monetary policy and defined their future financial relationships between the signatory nations. This was the first time in history a negotiated monetary order was created. What you'll find a lot in when reading articles and doing this for a while and really putting the time in and just being here for the long run, connections will pop up out of nowhere, and you'll see things when you're reading and be like, that sounds very familiar. Like right here, the Bretton Woods system created an obligation for the signatory countries to maintain their external exchange rates within 1% by tying their currencies to gold. The IMF was created to bridge any temporary imbalances in this global exchange system. So some of these cryptocurrencies that we invest in, their specific design and purpose has been to be a bridge asset or currency to exchange other currencies and peg it to a certain rate and a stable value and being very liquid, to temporarily balance the global exchange system and foreign exchange rates. All right, so then it gets to dive into the bank course. In 1944, the US controlled the majority of the world's gold reserves and demanded that the US dollar be used as the currency of exchange between countries. So this was the foundation of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. It is worth noting that the economist John Maynard Keynes did not believe the world's monetary system should be tied to a national currency and had previously proposed a supranational currency known as the bankor to act as the unit of account for international exchange. The Bretton Woods system stipulated that international trade would be conducted in US dollars because the dollar would be based on gold. So that changed in 1971 when President Nixon ended the convertibility to US dollars into gold. It is because of this historical association between the Bretton Woods system and a gold standard that some observers are predicting that talk of a new Bretton Woods moment potentially indicates a move back to a gold standard. And then I believe I showed you in the first video, the biggest scam in the history of mankind, the commentary, the team commentary. If you go in there, we show you that there's a Federal Reserve Chair nominee that had said that she wants to go back to a gold standard, but in a cryptocurrency type way. So she had mentioned it could be a cryptocurrency backed by precious metals or a basket of commodities or currencies. So it's very interesting how things are lining up. So the US dollar has been completely devalued over the last century through inflation, and we just learned about that. So inflation occurs when the central bank prints fiat money and issues it into the economy. As the volume of currency in circulation increases, it erodes the purchasing power of all the existing currency in circulation. So that's one key thing about inflation, that inflation really spurs out of control based off the velocity of money, the rate at which money is moving from one hand to the other. The faster that velocity is, plus the money printer going on, that's the recipe for the biggest inflation you could ever see. And I don't believe we're at that moment in the sense of, I don't think the velocity as far as the money that's being printed and kind of dumped into the system, I don't think it's moving as fast as the rate that it needs to be to have that inflation where we can benefit off of, high asset prices and things of that nature, or growing investments. I believe that maybe the velocity of money isn't up to the speed that inflation needs to come in at, and we may see some deflation or stagflation or something of that sort. Stagflation is when the economy is slowing down and it's not doing that good, as well as there is inflation, so things are going up in price, goods and services. So given that almost all the value of the US dollar has been stolen in this manner, it makes sense that the world's financial elite are calling for a new system. So the IMF is touting this new Bretton Woods moment as a way to address a number of issues such as climate change, financial inequality, and the economic effects of the global shutdown. It is unlikely that this announcement is fortuitously taking place in conjunction with the World Economic Forum's call for a great reset and a global discussion of central bank digital currencies. The world's economic elite are preparing us for massive changes, and it is likely that those changes will represent the increased financial control and surveillance of our population. It is impossible to predict how these changes will manifest and what effects they will have on our economies, but what we can say is that there will be increasing centralization in our financial systems. When these changes are enacted, there will be very few opportunities to opt out of these centralized systems. So cryptocurrencies and precious metals are some of the very few asset classes that offer us freedom from the impending economic structures. I've been saying this, guys. I've been banging the drum all throughout these courses. Cryptocurrencies, precious metals. Very few asset classes that offer us that freedom from this impending economic collapse or future doomsday scenario financial surveillance type thing. So when we're able to combine the value of precious metals with the utility of blockchain technology, we have the best of both worlds. We may need to call on this value sooner than we think if we wish to avoid being swallowed into increasingly centralized systems. That's it, guys. So that is the Bretton Woods system. Very important to know. In the next video, we're going to dive into the gold standard and just touch upon it a little bit because we covered it in the Bretton Woods system here, but we'll touch upon it, then we'll dive into the bank course. So I'll see you in that video.
Are you sick and tired of just stressing and guessing, holding and hoping, and watching the crypto market go through its ups and downs and not doing anything about it? If you're someone in that position, then look no further than the Stargate automated experience. We just launched it and we built custom automated trading bots for XRP, XLM, HBAR, and a bunch of other utility coins. If that sounds of interest to you and you want to learn more, click the video below and I'll see you over there.